I just wanted to see how long it would take you to
Hi.
Hi, Christine. How are you?
How are you?
Oh, 30, flirty, thriving.
How are you feeling? I knew it. That's why I paused. I had an intro I was gonna do and I forgot. I was
What
like, I
was
knew it.
it?
Okay, let me try again.
Oh,
Okay,
God.
let me try again. Okay. Em, you look
Old.
different.
Okay. Wow. How long were you working on that bit?
It only took me a few hours while I
I
couldn't sleep in the middle of the night.
I thought you were gonna play the music to the Crypt Keeper or
No,
something.
that would have been good. I was just gonna be like, I was gonna say something. I forget. I had it all planned out. Obviously, it went down the tubes.
Well, I do look different. The day I turned 30, I now have a white eyebrow hair.
I
So,
did see that. I didn't see the eyebrow hair. I did see the post about the eyebrow hair, and
mhm.
I am sorry, but you know what? Hey, the worst is over, right? Like now you're fine.
Oh, sure, 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 sure. Yeah, the worst, definitely.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know if it's the worst for you has only begun because now I can officially start complaining about turning 31. So,
But
um,
that's
it never
you
ends
can't
for
just do that every
you.
year. That's so annoying. You can't just you can
I
complain
can,
about the big ones.
I can, and I might. I don't know. I like to keep you on your toes. We'll see how things go. Depending on my mood, I'll just ruin everyone else's mood and just be like, ah!
How was your birthday? This has to be a positive topic, right?
It is a positive topic. Overwhelming, but exactly that's overwhelming is a good thing to me often.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. I feel like your birthday was incredibly low key and mine was as
High
extra as
key.
ever. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like and so I'm watching Selling Sunset right now and a season ago one of them got engaged and she brought a zebra to the engagement party and
Oh
that's
my
kind of
god.
the level of unnecessary
Well,
I'm always aspiring for. And it
didn't Linda
delivered.
literally bring horses to your or zebras or something to one of your parties? Isn't that a thing?
She brought horses to it was one of those pony ride situations. But she and I'm sure I appreciated it at the time, but I was literally so young, I don't even remember it, so it was kind of for nothing. Sorry, mom.
Photo? I mean, I feel like parents.
Literally no photos. For all I know, she's fucking lying. But whatever.
Oh, she could just wait a second. I'm gonna do that someday. Oh yeah, I rented out the whole zoo for you, Leon. You just don't remember, and my phone wasn't working that day. So
Well, so my mom actually she does have a record of lying to me on my birthday because when I was 3 we lived in San Francisco and we did live right next to one of the studios where they shot Barney. So I was one of the luckiest fucking children on earth at the
holy
time.
shit.
And if I said "Oh, Barney's across the street," I wasn't totally lying. We were pretty close to whatever studio it was that they shot for a while. Um and my mom for my 4th birthday or my 3rd birthday or whatever it was, she was like, "Oh, we're going to have Barney come over. Just stroll on over after his nighttime walk through the streets, I guess."
What?
And they were like, "Well, he just lives right by, so he's just going to pop on over." And it ended up of course being some guy in a costume. And the costume, by the way, in hindsight, 20 years later, the pictures are horrendous. That it was the cheapest Barney costume they could have found. His head was half deflated. But at 3, I was convinced. I was like, this is the real deal. And my mom had me believe it so well that she couldn't back out of the lie. And all the way until I was in high school, I thought it was the legitimate Barney that she hired. So for all
Oh
I know,
my god. You were one of those people in high school who's like, no, I swear to God, somebody famous. I know somebody famous. It's Barney.
yeah, we still text. But no, so for all I know, the horses were not real. But Allison this year delivered on my 30th
With
and
a
all the right was
zebra. No,
not
not a
with a
zebra.
zebra, but I cried a lot. I cried a
Wow.
lot. Yeah, she made it pretty darn emotional. So she did a good job. And then my
Good.
mom had everyone I think I've ever known on earth send in a video wishing me happy birthday, and then it was literally a feature film length.
I
So
was wondering because I sent in a
it
video and
took a
it was
long time.
3 or 4 minutes, like just, like a cameo length of video. And I
Thank
almost
you
like,
for your cameo.
you're welcome. I almost linked your mom to my cameo, and then I was like, that's not funny. So I did
That's
my
hysterical. If it had the little cameo watermark on the bottom, I
she
would have lost my mind.
she was ready to kill me anyway because mine was so delayed. But I did my 3-minute, 4-minute video, and then I was like, oh my god, if everyone is submitting, and I had to like edit mine down to make sure it was like shorter. I'm like, if everyone is submitting one of these, it's gonna be like several hours long. This video.
Well, it was our generation was not the problem, as you can guess. It was all the people who own phones and have never done any version of video quality control, because they were given no time limit, they were given no landscape or portrait, they were riding on the devil's flames, and
Wow.
so I had an uncle who talked for I think 15 minutes.
Oh my goodness. I apologize because mine was so freaking long. It was like 3 minutes long, and I
No,
felt so bad.
everyone our age understood the assignment, I think. I'm very grateful, and I don't want to sound like I'm not appreciative, but I was like, wow, I really wish some of them got some more rules sent to them.
I feel like this is one where I almost again texted like landscape or portrait, and I was like, okay, I don't think Linda. I think she would
No.
have specified if this were
She'd be like, if
important.
you want to send a portrait of you at a landscape, that'd be great.
Yeah. An oil portrait, maybe. Oh boy. Well, I'm so happy you had a happy day and a happy weekend.
I did have a happy day, and maybe we can talk about this more in our bonus episode afterwards after this. Because I do want to give you the details on the birthday, but my story is a little long, so I don't want to be that person and make it as chaotic as last episode.
Okay, so
You get what I'm
should we
saying?
both give our birthday stuff next or in the aftermath? Because I want to talk about
Sure,
mine a
but
little bit.
I want to ask about yours because I
Oh,
saw
oh, oh.
pictures, but I don't. All I know is like what you texted me, but I kind of want to play detective and ask you too many questions about
Oh,
it.
well, I don't want to like take up time, but I just want to give a little credit to Blaze because he worked really hard on it, and he
You want
also
to tell
had.
everyone what he did? I didn't mean to like shut you up. I was just saying for
No,
my.
no, you didn't. I just realized we do our birthday episode already was so freaking long, so I don't want to overdo it with talking about ourselves. But here we
Why
are.
not? Oh wait, hang on.
No, so well, first of all, I want to admit something to you. I have a confession that has nothing to do with our birthdays.
I
Which
don't
is
believe you. What?
you know that coffin candle? I lit it before we recorded, but to appease everyone, I took it off the shelf and put it on the table.
And what?
This
It fell over.
This will show you how good of a listener I am. As you
What?
were telling, like about halfway through your story, I looked over and I realized that when I had shifted and moved my microphone, I had swung the back of my microphone directly into the flame, and I was like, "What's that smell?" And then I looked over, and the plastic was like melting off of the microphone stand. And I just kept
Christine,
listening to your story. So
honestly, I appreciate the. I don't know if loyalty is the right word, but certainly the dog to a squirrel attention. I don't know. I appreciate your
I have commitment.
undivided attention. I guess.
Undivided. And I just noticed that it was like dripping. So as soon as I made sure nothing was like fully on fire, and everything had calmed down a little bit, I just kept. So it's still the candle's still going strong. But I had
She's
to
still
move
cooking.
the microphone out of the way. Sorry, I just wanted to point
Also,
that out.
I know that room has white carpet. That's a bold move with a black candle. That's to have
And
knocked
a
it over and
black-
almost caught so many fires with it.
Okay, wow. Yeah, we're gonna get some. Oh man. I was just trying to appease everybody by putting it in a stable surface, and then I swung my microphone stand directly into the flame.
I love you.
I don't know of all people why I was allowed to move into a house from the 1800s. Like this is just a
You're going to be
disaster.
the reason that house doesn't exist anymore one day.
Oh,
They're either going to make
no.
it into a museum about you, or in like a ball of flames, you'll just exit that home and take it with you. I don't know.
Oh my god. I promise I'm usually very conscientious about. I promise. People are not going to believe me. Anyway, okay, so my birthday. It was really lovely, and Blaze woke up with a baby, which I was like, all right, this is a perfect birthday.
You've already
know
done
what?
enough.
10 out of 10. But then he, I guess, went out. So the other thing is he had the baby with him. So it was a lot more work than just if he were doing it by himself. So he went out and he and the baby picked up donuts and my favorite iced latte. And they brought those to me in bed when I woke up. And then they took me out to brunch at one of our favorite brunch spots.
Was it that
And
was it that bagel place you always take me to?
no, it was Otto's, which I also took you to, I think, once with
Hmm.
Eva.
Oh,
It's where
is
you
it the
got the
place?
hot brown thing.
Aha, I thought okay.
We sat
Nope.
outside that day.
Yes, I do remember that.
And then we went around and did a little shopping in the neighborhood, and then we went home. And then at 2 o'clock, he was like, "Okay, you gotta go because you have a massage and a facial scheduled." And I was like, "What?"
Aw.
And so he sent me to do that, which was really, really, really nice. And then, and weirdly enough, the night before, I was like, "Can you rub my shoulder? It hurts." And so he was like, "Thank God I booked that."
It's like,
Uh,
well, I planned famously well.
Yes, he did. He was very surprised. And then I came home and he had like cleaned the whole first floor, decorated everything, got me like number balloons, bought a cake from Bon Bonnery, which is like the same as our wedding cake. Had like bought a bunch of snacks and food and drinks. And then my family came over and my brother came over and it was just really fun. And then he put the baby to bed and we all played games and drank and hung out. And he gave me a card that I showed M, which said, on the front, it said 1 year closer to death. And he like hand wrote it. And I was like, that's a really dark thing to do. And he's like, open it. And so on the inside, it said, Cab for Cutie, because he bought me concert tickets for next month to see Death Cab. So
Nice.
anyway, it was very lovely and chill.
The,
And then this weekend,
the card, by the way, also looked like it was straight out of like Hallmark. It was very well done.
Oh, well, he'll be very pleased to hear that. But yeah, so that's all. It was really fun and easy and chill. And then we both slept in and the baby kind of let us sleep in, which was nice.
I thought you were going to say we slept in and the baby like took care of herself.
No. I slept until 7:30, I should say, not like
Ugh.
super late. And then I went and took a nap. But yeah, so then I think this weekend I'm going to have some people over to play games and drink and do like more of like a big group of friends type situation. So
Nice.
anyway, it was great. You will be sorely missed, but I know you don't like board games, so I think you'll probably be okay.
Honestly, it's a gift to me to not be there.
You're
which,
welcome.
I sure would love to be in a room with you, but doing that is not what I want. But I hope you win, and I hope you get so competitive your eyes fall out or something.
I'm not competitive. Like, I don't know where you came up with this idea that I'm so
compared to
competitive.
me, you're competitive.
I guess so. I just like to like have something to do. When there's like a bunch of people in a room, I like to have something to do so it's not like, so we're all just staring at each other.
Oh, yes. That's not my vibe. But I'm glad you found your vibe. And I'm glad that we live on opposite sides of the country when you feel in the mood for a board game.
Which is always. So.
Which is always. But no, I'm glad you had a chill birthday. I would love to want a chill birthday. It sounds so pleasant and relaxing. And I unfortunately just
want a zebra.
I want a zebra and I want one in every room, and that's fine, I think. We'll figure it out. Anyway, tune in later if you want to hear all the things poor Allison had to go through in the last couple weeks.
Oh my gosh. All right.
But yes, and also tell Blaze if he could teach me how to make cards like that. I really am. It was a very lovely card. I was he made that? Apparently your sister-in-law gave him a kit or something?
Yeah, she like made a kit. So she's very like crafty. So she made like she like cut out all the cards, like pieces of paper into cards, and like got him like stamps and pens and marker, like stuff like that, and basically gave him like a kit to make his own cards for Christmas.
I was gonna say, what's craftier than being crafty? Making your own craft kit for other people.
I know. Teaching someone else how to be crafty. It's like you teach a man how to. You give a man
a card.
You give a man a birthday card. He can
read it.
The end. Okay. For the rest of the parable, listen to our after show on Patreon. This is a stupid show.
Delicious.
Thank you.
Put that on a birthday card, Blaze. Are you listening?
Blaze. Okay.
Give a man a card. ... Okay, wait. Someone put that on a card for Blaze one day.
Wait, that's so cute.
Okay, here's my story. And also, fingers crossed, I will say, well, not next week. Next week I'm going to be home, but the week after that, we might be seeing the Troll Hole soon. It has been a long time coming, folks. I know a lot of people are probably like, oh yeah, that fucking thing. But it's real, and
I can't wait.
It's halfway there. It's
just Just so you all know, I don't have any more intel than you do about this troll hole, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
That's
as
true.
excited.
I want Christine to have the reveal on the show. So poor Christine has also not heard about any of the headaches I've been dealing
Poor
with.
Christine hasn't heard about all my complaints. She must be suffering.
Woe is you. But anyway, expect in the next few episodes maybe a troll hole appearance. If everything goes well, we've got some deliveries coming in this week, and if they don't work out, then everything I said is a lie.
Cool.
Anyway, the mystery's there.
The usual.
So here's a story that I've never heard of, and I'm very excited to show it to you. It was the thing that always I don't know why I can't like read the room yet, but I thought, oh, this is a really quick and easy story. And then around like 1:00, I was like, I should try to do some deep diving.
Oh,
and then I
no.
found, I'm not kidding, like 13 hours of things, like
Oh,
13
no.
hours of interviews and podcasts and shows. And it was 1 a.m. and I went, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So this is the story of the Becker family haunting, which is not the name it usually goes by, but that's what I'm going to call it because its little tagline I wanted to save after I said the Becker family haunting, which is, this is the story of the first televised exorcism.
Whoa, what?
And it's a two-parter, so
well, no shit after 13 hours of video footage or whatever.
I don't know how many other podcasts have covered this. I'd like to think we're about to be one of the more well-researched versions because my brain is still rattling around from all the... I could probably recite this at a show and tell at this point. I know way too much about this story.
And then in 2 weeks, you're going to be like, the what family haunting?
I know. So the Becker family, if you listen within the next like 14 days, I might remember you if you were to...
Wow, what a compliment.
If you like it, I hope that, the Beckers are still around and they seem to really appreciate when their story is told accurately. So I don't know.
Good.
If you're around, hopefully you like it. Okay, so this is going to be a two-parter because I really went from finding nothing to finding everything.
Right.
And the reason that this even came across my consciousness is because there's apparently a movie coming out about this. And all of the like Deadline articles and like Screen Rant articles, they're all really not giving any information except a movie's coming and it's about the first televised exorcism, the end.
Ooh.
And so I thought it was going to be super quick because every article I read had like very minimal information. And I was like, how is there literally something called the first televised exorcism and there's not a single Google link about this? And it just became very clear to me that it was all audio based. There's really few articles and it's all interviews. So if you want to learn more about this, I hope you're on a road trip or something because you're not going to find any reading material out there.
Or I hope you have a really, really big open floor plan and can just vacuum for hours, That's what I hope
for you have a whole mansion of dishes to do. And
Ooh.
it's the saddest wish I've ever had for you, but
yeah,
you've got something to do now.
What's that thing you said earlier? Woe is you.
Woe is you. Don't I know it? Okay, so here we go. The Becker family. The couple is Edwin and Marcia. They lived in Illinois. I forgot to mention the year is 1971.
Okay.
Illinois, I think, if not Chicago proper, just outside of Chicago. Edwin and Marcia, they've been married for 3 years now. Young couple, starting life and being all happy. And they are expecting. And at the time, back in the 70s, landlords could kick you out for a lot less. And so basically this landlord heard that they were about to have a screaming, crying baby and went, goodbye, you're out.
Oh, no.
And if one of the sources is accurate that I read, then they got kicked out when she was 7 months pregnant.
So my God.
They had like a hot 60 days to find a place.
Yikes.
So I guess this is from the same source that they had been looking for a month and didn't find anything. So now they're getting super desperate and they can't find anything at all until they find a listing in the paper for this house that is in Ayr Estate. And so it was a 2-flat, which is I think just another word for a duplex.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Edwin's thought was, oh, well, we can buy it. We can rent out the first floor. We'll live on the second floor. And that way we're making some income while paying off this house.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes to the house. The house is like in desperate need of repair. It is physicked. It is either incredibly dirty and or it has been ransacked by the previous heirs who were like tearing up upholstery looking for hidden heirlooms and hidden money.
What the fuck?
It just looks like a complete mess. And I guess it wasn't in like the best neighborhood either, so it already like kind of gave an odd vibe. And so as Edwin walks in for the first time with the real estate guy to check out the house before he says yes, although he is desperate and optimistic that he can make it work. So he's pretty much ready to say yes as soon as he walks in. He's looking around this like dirty old house, ripped apart by like the furniture is all fucked up. And they walk in to the main hallway on the first floor. And out of the bedroom walks in this old, dirty, unhinged, clearly mentally unwell woman.
What?
And I guess the real estate guy was showing the house before they'd all officially moved out. And so the woman that walked out was the current and final heir to the home.
No.
And I don't know if these names are changed for protection, but in this story, we're going to call her Myra.
Okay.
And she walks out and she's very dirty, very disheveled. She looks very scary. Like she looks like she's like maybe a dangerous person. And she's holding with her a dog, a poodle that clearly has fleas, is also dirty. Edwin even said they never figured out if the dog was white or gray because it was just so dirty. And this woman flings the door open as soon as he walks into the house and starts cussing him out with the real estate person there and is saying, "We don't want you here. Get the fuck out. We don't want you here." But she's saying it in a very scary way where Edwin called her, quote, rabid and filthy with her language.
Okay.
With her language. He does, just to like also back Edwin up, he in many interviews is saying she is mentally unwell. Like there's a mental illness issue.
For sure, yeah.
But in terms of calling her rabid and filthy, I think it's more like her language because it really jarred him. He was like, I'm an altar boy. Like, I don't, like, this is not normal. And so for
can I ask
her to
a
be
quick
like,
question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if we know this or if you're going to say this, but like, was the house being foreclosed on?
So the vibe I got, because I am going to say in like 2 more bullets that he met a few of the currently living heirs and none of them seemed to be able to agree on anything. So I'm thinking they just couldn't handle fighting over the house anymore.
So they were just like, get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see.
That's the vibe I got, but also for all we know, they knew the house was haunted and they wanted out of here. I don't totally understand. It could have been foreclosed. They didn't really get a solid answer.
Because it sounded like they're kicking this old lady out almost.
Yeah, it does. But so anyway, he is very, very jarred by her. So she's cussing at them, and the real estate guy, who I guess has dealt with her before, starts cussing back at her louder and meaner. And then he looks at Edwin. He's like, "We've tried everything else. This is literally the only way we can.
Don't worry, I'll handle this."
It's like we've done everything else. All we've got is just screaming back until she backs down.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so I guess Myra was the last family member living there. So her family was the original builders and owners of the home, and I guess it just kind of stayed in the family, and she's now the last living family member to be there, but she's only one of 5 of the heirs.
Okay.
And I guess the other heirs didn't want the space. So as they walk around, this is when Edwin's seeing how in like horrible condition the house is, clearly ransacked for heirlooms, and Edwin even says that the rooms in hindsight, one of the earliest signs he could have seen of this place being haunted was that the rooms were weirdly cold, but he thought of it as a bonus because the house was so old that it didn't have central air. And he was like, that kind of works.
Yeah.
Also, remember, he was desperate and willing to make it work. So I think he was putting positive spins wherever he could.
Sure, makes sense.
He also said that the house may have had a creepy feel, but he also said in a bunch of interviews that he kind of came from like a broken home and lived in a few not so great areas. And so this felt no more creepy than any other place he'd been.
Yeah, I get it, buddy. I'm like, no AC? Well, the ghosts will keep me cold, I guess.
Exactly. And you're like, I've literally lived next to a graveyard my whole life. So like what's
And that was like peak quality home, you know? Like
Right.
that was like when I was
Yeah.
at the tip top.
the tip top. So he also, so the house is kind of creepy, but he's fine with it. The house is kind of cold, but he's fine with it. Myra is a whole other story because she's currently living there and he's trying to buy the place. And so
Yeah.
he, part of his like contingency with them was like, I will buy this place if Myra is out of here because he's agreeing to buy the place before his wife has even seen it because he's just so desperate. And also at the time he has said that he's gotten guff for like buying a house without like checking in with his wife. But his argument is like at the time a woman's signature on a mortgage meant nothing. So like she didn't need to be there. And she had said like, just
She was
go get us a
also
house.
very pregnant.
She was also super pregnant.
Like,
So
okay.
so I think he was like, I was just, if I could find a house, I think she was gonna be fine with it. We were so desperate.
A roof.
And so he said, Myra needs to be out of here before my wife moves in because if she meets her, she's going to be so frazzled and freaked out, she might back out of this. Which
Yeah.
is like, for as desperate as they were, he was worried that she would leave because of how
Right.
scary and dangerous this person felt. And so basically, during closing, they said that, okay, we'll get her out of here before you move in. But during closing, Edwin saw the last 5 heirs of the house kind of figuring out last minute things. They all had their own individual attorneys. They all clearly hated each other. They were fighting over small things like pictures and $2. And it was just obviously a very silly situation. So
Silly indeed.
very sad, silly. And so the other heirs go over to Edwin or maybe the real estate guy and they say, we're having a really hard time finding a place to take Myra in. Can she stay here for at least a few months while you're here?
Months?
And here's the thing. So it was 90. One interview he said 90 days. One interview he said 120 days.
That's many months.
It's many months. And so what Edwin did was he used
There's
this
a
to his
baby coming.
He used this to his advantage because he actually was going into the house and didn't have enough money to close that day. And he said, if you pay me to keep her here, then I'll keep her here. And also he was able to then be able to afford all the closing costs that day.
Oh, well, and I guess they have that separate.
Yeah. So they were like,
okay.
she'll
I
just stay on
see.
the first floor and we'll live on the second floor.
It's not
And-
like she'll sleep next to the crib. Like she'll have
Right,
her own
right.
space. Okay, that makes a little more sense.
And so they paid Edwin to let Myra stay there until they could figure something else out. And this is a quote from him. He said, I made them pay me in advance, which actually allowed me to close the sale. I didn't have enough at closing, so she stayed with us for a while. And she had a filthy mouth and she ticked us off. Every time she said, we don't want you here, I thought she was always talking about just her and the poodle. But
Me and the
maybe.
poodle.
He also said in another interview, he was like that, or I think he said it on his literal website. He has like a Q&A.
Yeah.
And he even said like someone asked questions about the poodle. And he was like, honestly, every time I walked into that room, the poodle would ignore me just like she would. Like they hated me.
Oh.
So they move in and she's pretty terrible. Apparently she would literally just like open doors and just start maniacally laughing at them.
Mm.
And then out of nowhere, she would just go into like complete cry fest and be super miserable and sad. So she's clearly like, she needs help.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do. They're not family. They are unaware of the family history. Also, they never asked about the house history because they were naive and young and just so desperate for a home. They didn't really want to know the family history. So they were just kind of living with this person, hoping that she would keep to herself. And interestingly, he said in one of his Q&As that like he never saw her leave the house. He has no idea how the dog ever went out for walks or how she got groceries or
Yeah.
he was like it's a complete mystery. I don't know where she was always in her room. I never saw her leave
Ooh.
the house. So after he buys it and they're moving in, Marcia, who's the wife,
Yeah.
Marcia sees it for the first time and already feels off. So she went into this house being kind of a believer. And the first time she walks in, she walked up and knocked on the door. And even though it was her place, it felt like she needed to knock on the door because it felt so wrong that she was going to live there.
Ooh, like that she was maybe not welcome there or like
Yeah.
wasn't comfortable there. Oh, I don't like that.
It wasn't home. And so
Yeah.
she said with every step into the house, she felt like something was wrong and bad.
Oh gosh.
She got to one room, and this is a quote from her saying, "Oh God, something's not right. I don't feel right here. I feel like I should get out and run as fast as I can, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings. It took a lot of him to get this house. The house
Oh,
did not want us there, but we just had no other choice, and I knew this, so I just kept quiet."
poor thing.
Yeah. So as they're moving in, she's feeling stared at the entire time. She's unpacking things, and immediately as she moves in, she's putting things on the table, she's leaving the room, coming back, and things are missing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So
Great start.
so things are disappearing and rearranging on like minute one of them living there. The first night, I think it was the first night they were there, Edwin also found an old used Ouija board, and he didn't have really any interest in the paranormal. It didn't freak him out. He was just like, "Oh, this was the family's, and they left it here, so I'm just gonna throw it away." So he just threw it away,
Oh goodness.
which I feel like is bad if maybe they had left some sort of portal open or something, and now he's just thrown it away.
I feel like it's better than setting it on fire. Like I think everybody always thinks you should set things on fire. I mean, me too, me included, as I
Yeah.
light my entire microphone on fire. But I feel like the gut instinct is always like, oh, so I burned it. And it's like, that doesn't seem like it always helps. I feel like oftentimes that makes
Yeah.
it worse. So at least he didn't burn it. I don't know.
I wonder if he would have if he had like a personal issue with Ouija boards.
Yeah,
But,
I feel like
for
that's
him, I think
more-
for him it
yeah.
just felt like garbage. He was just like, "Oh, throw it away."
So at least he didn't, I guess, set it on fire. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
But
guess.
throwing it away probably isn't much better.
Well, so right away, more things start happening in the house, including the lights flickering in a really intentional way. They said that it felt really rhythmic or like Morse code because it'd go
Ew.
like flick, 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 flick.
What does that spell?
Help me, I'm a ghost.
Oh, well, they should have figured that out.
They would have not had to live in mystery the whole
Yeah.
time, I think.
It's too bad.
They also start hearing knocks and bumps in the house. Dishes started flying out of the cabinets. Cabinet doors and normal doors were all opening and closing by themselves. And a mixer flew off the wall and landed at Marcia's feet.
Oh, geez.
Also, they had to start getting multiple keys for each of their locks because the keys would go missing so often, and they would reappear twisted and bent.
No. Oh, God. That's fucked up.
Which feels like it almost feels like, oh, your key can't work, so you can't get in.
Yeah. And it's like, I intentionally don't want you to have access.
Mhm.
Ooh, yuck.
So this was one source that I don't know how trustworthy it is. I feel like something like this would have been mentioned a lot more in other places, but apparently, according to one source, something actually, quote, picked up their cat, held it out the second floor window, and dropped it 20 feet to the pavement.
No, baby.
Which, like, by the way, at least cats like can land with 20 feet of preparation, but like it's still not good. Still not
That's
good.
terrible.
And yeah, I mean the animals are getting messed with. And again, I don't know if that's a legitimate source. The only information I don't have about this is so Edwin later goes on to write an actual book about this, and maybe he wrote about that in the book and then he just doesn't talk about it in interviews. But I know because it's animals, I wanted to like be extra ginger with that.
Yeah. No,
Information.
I got you. Yeah.
I don't know
yeah.
how real that one is.
Okay.
So Edwin also later reported that 2 different times in the house he saw a dark, inhuman mass that moved very fast in the house.
Yuck.
So, and there was also one room that Marcia said no matter how many lights you turn on or open windows, one space was always dark, like it absorbed all the light.
Yuck.
I hate that. Imagine turning every light on and opening all the windows and it's still dark in there.
Yeah, that's creepy. It's like intentionally gloomy.
It defies physics, and that's when I am scared for
Oh,
sure.
when M, the physicist, realizes the laws of physics are not being followed.
That's me. Um, so this is a quote from Marcia about the haunts that were happening more and more intensely. After a while, there's just no denying it. I think I knew from the beginning. I just didn't want to believe it. The air in that place changed every day from minute to minute. Sometimes you couldn't breathe. Sometimes it was thick. Sometimes it was cold. It was constant. And I just thought, oh, it's just an old building that isn't ventilated well. But I think I always knew.
Oh, no.
Meanwhile, as Marcia is dealing with all this while Edwin is at work, she's taking care of a baby in this haunted home and he gets to leave.
Yeah.
So
she's stuck.
he is much more unaware of what's going on than
Sure.
she is. Also, he's a skeptic. So like she's at home already believing this stuff and it's
Terrible.
happening around her, and then he comes home and is like not helpful because
Honey,
he like
I'm home.
yeah. And he's also too stubborn to pay attention to the things that he should be noticing. So he's rationalizing everything, even things that to him clearly don't make sense, but he's coming up with logical explanations or trying to.
Yeah.
And part of him also thought that Marcia was just making this stuff up from the beginning. Which he apologizes for pretty profusely in all of his interviews.
Why would he
He's like,
think that? Just to...
So he thought at the time, one of the interviews, he said like, we were living like fun and fancy free before we had this kid, and now all of a sudden she's stuck at home with a baby and she's feeling too settled, and he thought maybe there was something like after her pregnancy, maybe she was just like feeling lonely, or she was like, I don't know, he was coming up with a bunch of arguments that in hindsight he said like, I was really cruel and I put her through hell for all that.
I mean,
Because
okay.
she would say like, this is going on and I'm really scared, and he would just completely dismiss her. And I don't know, I guess that was his way of coping, just being in denial.
Right.
But so there was like a good 6 months of 21 months is how long they lived there, I think.
Oh boy.
In the first at least 6 months, he was not helpful with her.
Great.
And it does eventually start getting in the way of their relationship because she's freaked out and doesn't feel like he's listening to her. Also, when he comes home, he either doesn't want to hear her stories, or as he started believing her, he was starting to feel so much shame and guilt that he couldn't protect her, that he didn't ask her.
He's like,
he like,
just don't tell me about it.
Yeah. And later, I'm gonna say this in the second episode too, but he later on they go on to do a TV show. They were like one of the episodes of like Paranormal Witness, and he ends up saying like that show really helped us. And also when I was writing my book, I like finally sat down with my wife and interviewed her on everything, and I learned so much that I should have known 40 years ago.
Oh geez,
but he was just, I know, and he was like, I was just too first of all in denial and too stubborn, and he was like, I just honestly felt so guilty, I didn't want to know, so I never asked her. But she also, that means she just like lived with all of this by herself,
right? Yeah.
So he also apparently wrote an article, I couldn't find it, but he said he wrote an article somewhere about how to keep the paranormal out of your relationship. And I was like,
don't read that, because it might ruin us forever.
I was like, it's all that binds us.
Yeah.
And so so anyway, he was just like completely dismissing her, thought she was either making it up or maybe that was his own excuse for himself.
Right.
And meanwhile, the whole time, like Myra's probably still walking around freaking her out physically while she's freaking out spiritually with all this other stuff going on. And Edwin's brother, I guess, was also starting to visit more often, and he was getting freaked out by things. What started to get Ed to notice, I keep saying Edwin, sorry, I don't know if he goes by Ed. What made Edwin start to really notice that, yes,
sorry,
my main man, my Edie Winnie. Okay, whatever. What's wrong with me?
What?
I tried to up you, and I
always
ended up
one
downing.
up me here.
I always try, and it fails a lot of the time. So, what did you say? E-money or something? So,
E-Dog, but E-Money's good too.
So what E-Dog was up to, and what finally got him to notice that something really was going on, but he was still in denial, but he had his eyes open while hoping it was not true, was their daughter was getting christened, and so they had a few people over at the house.
Uh-oh. I have a
And
feeling.
as the priest came in,
Oh no.
first of all, Myra comes out of the room and starts cussing out the whole family for
Oh,
being there.
super. Wait, why are they doing this at the house? Or is this like the
Because I
after
think part
party?
of her, I don't know. I think part of her christening was he would also going to bless the house, maybe like do a 2-for-1 situation.
Oh, I feel like because whenever there was a baptism growing up, it would be like you do it at the church and then like everyone comes back to the house to like have a little brunch or
Mm,
whatever. So maybe
a little
they invited the
shindig.
priest.
Maybe. All I know is that he was also there to additionally do a house blessing.
Okay, okay.
And so when he shows up, Myra gets in his way and starts cussing out the priest. So the priest freaks out, and he was supposed to be there for longer, but he was very much like, I'm just going to bless the house and leave. And he's getting ready for his blessing. And I don't know what the right word is because obviously I did not grow up with all this, but whatever the brass like wand is that has the holy water in it.
Yeah, it goes like this.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it's called either.
His brass wand.
His wand. Oh my god, that's great.
Which is ironic because it's magic.
Yeah, exactly.
But so he holds it up, getting ready to do the start of the blessing, and the brass wand shatters.
Oh gosh.
Which, like, according to Edwin, and I guess according to me, because I've also never seen it, I don't know about brass shattering. That feels
That
kind
seems
of
like one of your physics lines in the sand, you know?
I'll talk to one of my cohorts at the lab.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it just shatters. And so the family kind of freaks out, obviously. The priest crosses himself and picks up all the pieces, and then he just straight up says, I have to go.
You gotta go. What are you gonna do?
He's like, this is not for me.
Sorry.
Which, by the way, thanks, priest. Let's bring that back.
Thanks,
because
priest. We haven't said that in so long. Yeah, wait, thanks, priest. Really? You're gonna just like pick up the puzzle pieces of your wand and leave?
Yeah, he's
Thanks
like,
a lot.
I'm outie.
There's a baby here.
Well, so that's what Edwin says. He was like, at least bless my daughter's room and then you can go. So that's what he does. Apparently there's like a funny little thing that happened where
Wait, he like scotch taped his wand back together?
No, he apparently got lost on the way to the baby's room and like walked into a closet and something silly like that. But so he blessed the daughter's room, left, refused to ever come back.
Yeah. I mean, I can't necessarily blame him.
I don't either. I feel bad on both sides. I certainly, if I were Edwin, I'd be like, bless this.
No, you're right.
house.
No, you're right. You're right. I feel like it's kind of a double-edged sword here. Like neither side seems to be.
Yeah, like I'm totally on Edwin's side, but also if I was holding something and it shattered in my hands as I was trying to do a blessing, I'd be like, you know what? Not for me.
You know what? Demons win today.
Yeah. So he never comes back, and the rest of the house, obviously, things just got worse. So their attitudes, Edwin and Marcia, their attitudes towards each other started changing, like I said, mainly for like obvious miscommunication issues. But Edwin in particular was getting very hostile and angry in the house, which is very Amityville of like the dad like was getting really hostile.
You know, I feel like that happens a lot on those shows. What's the show? Maybe it is. I don't think it's Paranormal Witness. Is it A Haunting? Or what's the one where they go to people's houses and they do like kind of the cheesy reenactments and the family?
I think it's A Haunting or like My Ghost Story or something.
Yeah, one of those. I feel like so many times the dad is skeptical, then he goes in and then his personality starts changing. Like this seems like a pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. And also keep in mind, this was before any ghost content was out there. So it's not like
he was just copying it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he started getting super hostile about apparently he was actually getting so angry that there are things he intentionally avoids writing about in his book because either he was so angry in those moments or he made a joke in an interview where he was like, I don't know if the statute of limitations is up. I don't know if I want to admit the things I did when I was angry. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but
Crickets
okay.
Said that joke.
I know. And I'm like, okay, so you were angry. Got it.
Yikes.
And so to your point where you're saying like, oh, it's so weird that all the husbands seem to always be the skeptics and thus the ones that end up getting really angry for no reason. Edwin says, if you ever feel, I guess in a haunted house, if you ever feel a hot flash or instant agitation, that's a sign. And that was my weakness because it was my temper and it made me angry all the time. So I wonder if it's just like a dude thing for the anger to be the thing that's triggered before anything else.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know either. I feel like a hot flash for me is like PMSing, so maybe I have a good excuse. I'm like, it's menopause or it's
Fair enough.
PMS.
I think
But
anyone would be agitated in a hot flash, that's for sure.
also that, yeah.
I'd feel like, oh my God, get me out of here. But yeah, so he thinks that it was either that he was more quick to anger to begin with, or he also said in another interview that maybe it was because he was really skeptical and stubborn, that the spirits didn't
Yeah.
really have any other way to like start making him vulnerable except to work off of his anger. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm a physicist, not an expert with
Right.
this stuff. So one of the other ways that their relationship started kind of floundering was the house and the entities were starting to build a lot of mistrust between them.
Oh, dear.
So at the time, Edwin would call home while he was at work to check on her, but the phone would always be busy. And he was getting mad because back in the 70s, there was like a phone bill that was based off of the location and how far away the other house was that you were calling. And
Oh my gosh.
so he was like, the phone bill is going to be off the goddamn charts if you're on the phone every minute. Like, who are you calling? And Marcia was like, I'm not calling anybody. And eventually they started noticing that anytime they weren't looking at the phone, when they would look back, the phone had taken itself off the hook and the phone was sitting on the floor.
Ew. Well, and also with that, like if she's saying I'm not on the phone, then he probably thinks she's lying. Why is she lying? Maybe she's talking to somebody, doesn't
Yeah.
want to tell me who it is. I feel like there's all sorts of layers to that.
So he actually tried to trick her or like double blind her like that. And so I guess back in the day, the phone bill would show you every individual
Oh, right.
landline you called. And so he was thinking like, oh, I'm going to wait until the phone bill gets here and then I'm going to show her all the numbers and be like, you can't deny this. Who are you calling? But it was like, not that, like, she's not calling anyone. And so it just, I think, freaked them both out of like, the phone is literally turning itself off, which is just another sign of like, we don't want you here. We don't want you to be able to call for help. We don't want other people to be able to reach out to you.
Yeah, that one almost feels sinister in the way of like, we don't want you to have access to the outside world. Like that's so creepy.
Super. Like I hate that because it's like, oh, even if you think someone might be calling you, they'll never hear from you. And then Edwin started noticing that anytime he would run his morning bath water, the plug to keep the tub filled up would take itself out and wrap itself around the faucet.
Ew.
Because the plug had like a little chain, and the
Yeah.
chain would wrap around the faucet and
No. I
to
don't
keep
like
itself
that.
unplugged, so the water would always fall out, and then he would never get his morning baths.
Aw.
But this was actually another way of keeping their relationship kind of strained, because what he used to do was he would let the bath water run, and then he would go downstairs while the bathtub was filling up, and he would have his like morning moment with his wife.
Oh
And
boy.
now he's so paranoid about the bathtub, and he's trying to figure out why the plug's doing that now he's, instead of going down and hanging out with her, he's sitting up in the bathroom just staring at the bath.
And probably not helping with the baby and all that. Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? His reasoning was like, he thought that the pipes were old, and so the pressure in the pipes might be pushing the plug out so hard that the plug was like jumping out of the tub and wrapping itself around the faucet.
Right.
I was like, wow, the mental gymnastics for denial is crazy. And so but so he was spending every morning now in the bathroom monitoring the bathtub, because he started noticing it would only happen when he left the room.
Of
which
course,
he
when he's
thought
not
was-
looking. Yeah.
Mhm. And so now their relationship strained that way. They're not having their morning time together. And also in the bathroom, eventually Marcia feels something touch her in there. And so she
No.
starts getting so nervous to do her own like hygiene routines or anything without Edwin being there.
Oh,
So
no.
now she's terrified to be in the bathroom alone. And by now, Marcia is so scared of the entire house that she officially makes a space in the kitchen where her and the baby just hide out all day.
Poor thing. That's terrible.
Yeah, she even said in an interview that they were one of the few families at the time that had a color TV, and they had set up a whole nice space in the living
Oh,
room.
no.
And she was like, I never turned that TV on. I never went in there. I just stayed in the kitchen and watched my 9-inch black and white television because I didn't want to be in that room.
Yikes.
And then this is a quote from Marcia too. Even though things in the kitchen would also happen, the stove would go on and off, the water would go on and off, the broom would move, the fridge and the cabinet doors open, dishes flew out of the cabinets. The spirits loved playing tricks and games in there. She was just saying, like, I was hiding out in there, and yes, there was stuff going on in the kitchen, but she liked the kitchen the most because there was a door to the outside to escape, and there was a bunch of windows so she could look outside, and she said that grounded her and made her feel safe.
Jeez.
Yep.
And
Keep
there
in
was
mind-
food. There was a sandwich.
And
in
there
the
was
fridge.
food. And there was
That's nice.
food. Keep in mind they're they still aren't talking to each other about what's going on because he's still in denial and trying to rationalize everything. She's literally hiding out in the kitchen every day, and they're just not talking. And meanwhile, doesn't feel like she can talk to him about everything going on, but he's also not sharing everything he knows because he became friends with the next door neighbor who, according to Paranormal Witness, is named Walter.
No.
I don't know if that's true or if that was a made up name, but
Not again.
not again, another Walter. So Edwin has found himself a next door neighbor buddy. Apparently they would go down to the neighbor's basement and drink Southern Comfort, and Walter would tell him all about the original family. So again, this is the Paranormal Witness source, which the Beckers have said like they definitely dramatized things for TV. Dramatized?
I think dramatized, but I
They
know what you mean.
they definitely embellished the story. So I don't know
Right.
how realistic this source is, but the story goes on the show at least that Walter told him about the family that lived there before the original the family that lived there before them / the original owners. And Walter would say that he lived next to them for 50 years. He never talked to them. They were all very strange, and they were the original ones to build the house. So whatever happened in there was probably their doing.
They were very strange. Okay.
Very strange. And Edwin was not telling Marcia any of the darker parts that Walter told him, because he didn't want to embolden her fears and like let her know she was right to be freaked out.
Sure.
But he did say in interviews, like the next door neighbor was real and did inform him on some really dark shit that had happened in the house. But couldn't see anywhere. I couldn't find anywhere what that dark stuff was. I think he was like, I
Oh.
don't even want to put it in the book, the stuff that neighbor told me about the family.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's in his book, but I remember in an interview he was like, we don't need to talk about that.
Whoa, okay.
So I think he found out that stuff and was like, I'm not telling my wife because she's already so paranoid.
Yeah.
And around this time, this is when they finally get Myra out of the house, and new prospective tenants are coming to look at the place. And one was a woman with a baby. And as the woman and Marcia talked, Marcia got this weird feeling all of a sudden and turned around and saw that the baby, who was in like this little like rolling walker, it was being pushed by nobody. And the baby's feet were not moving, so the baby wasn't pushing themselves. But the walker was moving by itself closer and closer to the stairs.
Oh no.
And luckily Marcia caught the baby in time, but this is when she started freaking out that even her own baby might be in danger.
Seriously.
Because at that point, I think she was more worried about herself. And now she's like, oh shit, so like babies are also fair game.
Jeez.
Eventually, new tenants came in, and they were named Dan and Diane, which I think is fun. Dan and Diane.
That is fun. It's very fun.
That's fun.
That's
I'm splitting hairs here looking for the fun in this
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
So they moved into the first door flat, and they were around the same age as the couple. They also had a baby, and Marcia kind of thought, I like them a lot. We have a lot in common, and also if something happens, they'll hear me scream.
Oh,
is-
cute.
So sad.
And just like that lovely one piece of confetti that you had brought to the table gets burned up and it's gone.
By your coffin microphone
By my
candle.
coffin.
So Paranormal Witness was the only source that had Dan and Diane talking about their experience there, but they also said the second they moved in, things were going on downstairs. They noticed that the chandelier in their place would swing all the time. And they soon started hearing sounds of domestic abuse upstairs. And they thought that it must be Edwin and Marcia.
Uh-oh.
Interestingly, Edwin and Marcia were hearing sounds of domestic abuse
No.
downstairs, and they thought it was Dan and Diane.
Oh my gosh.
And both couples were terrified that the other was abusing their spouse because
Yeah.
they were waking up every night hearing a woman screaming in pain.
Oh, shit.
And then eventually they figured out that it was neither of them.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So they also thought Edwin and Marcia were stealing their stuff and turning off their electricity and just being kind of
Melting their
asshole
keys.
landlords. Yeah, melting their keys. So they were like, things were going on for them too. And as Edwin said, then came the animals.
Oh.
Apparently, any pet who ever lived in that house eventually, after being freaked out by something, ran away.
Oh, no.
So Dan had a dog, and with Dan got a dog while he lived there, and within like 4 days, the dog was gone.
No.
The dogs also, like Edwin and Marcia's dogs, who they'd had for a while, they were apparently very loyal dogs. They knew kind of the lay of the land. It wasn't like a new environment for them. This was their home. But they would look at nothing at a wall and just start growling and snarling.
Oh, no.
The cat would run out of rooms hissing, and its back would be arched in rooms where nothing was there. The one dog that was very loyal and, as Edwin said, would defend them from a bear. One night the dog saw something by the doorway that they couldn't see, and he got on the bed to defend Edwin and Marcia, and he was snarling and growling viciously in a way that they had never seen their dog act. And the next day, the dog jumped the fence and ran away.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And this is when Edwin says that this is when he was fully, truly freaked out because he was aware that he was powerless to something he couldn't see.
That's what's so scary. And you're like, you just feel helpless in so many different ways.
Yeah. And I guess in his book, he was afraid of being boring. And so he left a lot of information out on the dog running away. And so he got a lot of slack about like not going to find his dog. And then he wrote, I think, a second book and another interviews. He's been like, I looked for my dogs, to be clear. Like I went looking.
We didn't just let it run jump the fence and then
but I
shrug our
guess
shoulders.
he originally had like 3 or 4 pages of how he had like all these missing dog signs, and he would stay up all night looking for his dogs, and the dogs just never came home.
That's so sad.
But yeah, also like I kind of think about the dog though. If there was something that scary, like imagine how bad it had to be for that dog to be like, I'm fucking out of here. Like,
yeah,
I don't even
sorry,
want to be
I can't
here.
protect you from this. Goodbye.
Yeah. If that was the case, I don't know.
Right.
So both of their dogs and their cat, all acted weirdly, and at some point, I think eventually took off.
Gosh.
And then Dan's dog also did that. So, and I mentioned Edwin's brother earlier. Another time he came over, he and Edwin were walking around in the basement, and they found I don't know if it's a false door, but a hidden shed.
No.
With a padlock on it.
No.
And it was weird that it was untouched, considering the heirs before they got there had ripped everything apart. So it's interesting that they didn't touch this.
That's a good point.
In the basement, so this was in the basement, and the basement itself was already a very sinister area. Edwin says that this was where his fight or flight would always be kicked in. Anytime he went down there, he was incredibly agitated, incredibly angry, to a point where later on he found out that he had lost some memories of things he had done while he was angry.
Ugh.
Marcia, on day 1 of moving in, said she would never go down there in the basement because something was just so dark about that place.
Oh, jeez.
And Edwin, who was having anger issues, especially in the basement, he used this to let you know how bad it was that he was obsessed with music. He was a professional musician, actually. He loved playing guitar, all these things. And whenever he would go in the basement, all he wanted was silence with no radio, whereas usually he always had music playing.
Ew.
But he didn't even realize it until years later. He was like, I never wanted any sound down there.
Ew.
I know. So anyway, so they're down in the basement, which is already like a horrible primed area. Him and his brother find this padlocked shed, and they open up the shed and they find decades worth of early vintage porn.
Whoa, that's not what I was expecting.
They also find 30 to 40 shoe boxes of stacked paper rubber banded together like baseball cards or playing cards. And all of them are different individually cut out of magazine pictures of women's body parts.
Oh my God, what?
It was cartoons, magazines, newspaper clippings, comics.
Ew.
Someone had been cutting out a leg, an arm, a waist, a head.
Ew.
And it was, so this is from Ed. He's saying, we're talking tens of thousands.
Oh
I mean,
my
30
gosh.
or 30 or 40 shoe boxes of that shit that he said was up to like 50 years worth of decades of.
Ew, that is so disturbing.
Apparently all the stacks of paper had the same name on it, which I don't know if this is the real name or not, but Edwin calls it Ben.
Okay.
And so when we realized that Ben was up to no good, or he was up to something not good, this is when Edwin finally had a name for whatever entity was going around his house. And so he started blaming everything on Ben.
Got it.
To a point where he started talking to Ben.
Great.
And I guess I heard in one interview Edwin say once he found this shed full of really creepy stuff, he was like, okay, I need to start like talking to, or I need to start listening to my wife when she's saying that creepy things are going on here.
Nice.
So that's what it took. 50 years of porn. I'm kidding. Okay, so Dan remembers that Dan was the tenant with Diane. Dan.
Yeah.
So he's still living there at the time, and he even remembers Edwin talking to Ben all the time by himself, and he thought Edwin was crazy because he was like, you're literally talking to Ben and there's no Ben. And so he was kind of getting freaked out in his own way. Meanwhile, Diane, his wife, was getting freaked out in a different way. All four of these people were having different experiences, and none of them were talking to each other. Dan and Diane weren't talking to Edwin and Marcia because they were like, we're your tenants. We don't want to get kicked out for like seeming weird or like saying we're seeing things. Meanwhile, Edwin and Marcia weren't telling them because they didn't want to scare their tenants.
Right.
And Edwin and Marcia were having their own issues where they were not communicating. And then I think Dan and Diane were also not having a really solid communication either. So around this time, like I mentioned earlier, Edwin's starting to feel a lot of shame and guilt for not being able to protect his family. Plus, they're losing friends because their friends don't want to come over anymore. The friends stopped calling the phone because it was always off the hook, not because they were putting it off the hook, but the ghosts were. And he didn't know what was right from wrong, and he didn't know how to handle it. And so he just started getting angry at the ghosts, and he began antagonizing them.
Oh, no. That's probably what they wanted.
I think so. And I think this is going to be your favorite quote of the whole show. Because Edwin said, I was basically Zach Bagans before Zach Bagans was born.
Oh my God. The OG.
Because I would yell and I would scream at the ghosts.
The OG ZB right here in our midst.
And so one night the ghosts kept opening a door in the kitchen that Marcia wanted closed. And so Edwin tied it up with string, and the door began to vibrate and shake, trying to close itself.
Ugh.
To a point where they were both freaking out, and Edwin starts antagonizing the ghost, being like, what kind of ghost are you if you can't even break through string?
Oh, it's a good diss.
Yeah. And so meanwhile, Marcia hates that he's antagonizing him because Marcia's like, I have to live with this fucking thing. Like, you get to go to work. I have to deal with it after you've pissed it off. And so that was just one example of how they were not even listening to each other anymore. And Edwin was challenging these spirits while Marcia's hating it. And another night they have a friend over who experienced the door vibrating when tied up. This became like a normal thing. They would tie up the door and watch it vibrate and watch Ben try to crack the string. And the friend stood up, kind of not believing it, and was like, well, ghosts aren't real. And all of a sudden, a spindle was sitting in the cabinet nearby, and it flew out at the friend, past his head, and slammed down on the table with no bounce, which freaks me out. It's not like it got thrown and then had a little reverb to it. It like someone like just slammed it down on the table and stuck it there.
Oh no.
So then those friends stopped coming over. So Edwin doesn't know what to do anymore about the spirits. There was no internet at the time. There were no Ghostbusters to call. There was no paranormal community to look into. There was no information anywhere. There wasn't even the movie The Exorcist hadn't even come out yet.
Right.
Amityville hadn't come out yet. There was nothing. He said in one interview all he knew of was Casper, which was like the opposite of this.
Right. It's not going to help.
And so he went back to the same priest that blessed or tried to bless the house, and he begged him to come back and bless the house again. And the priest straight up said no.
Oh,
And he told him that, I hate to break it to you, but you and your wife need psychological help.
what? Oh, I
So
hate to break it to you.
totally
What a
gaslit them.
jackass.
So Edwin freaks out. He like, you were my last hope, and starts cussing out the priest, and he ends up getting kicked out of his parish.
Oh no. I mean, this priest saw it firsthand and was too scared to stay.
Yeah.
And now he's like, no, you're just crazy. Like,
Yep.
what a jackass.
So when you're kicked out of your parish, I guess you're not allowed to go to another one. That's like some unspoken church rules, I guess. So they felt like they couldn't go to any parishes, and Edwin was at a loss. And despite not being welcome inside, things were so bad at home that Marcia was now not hiding out in the kitchen all day, but she was now sitting on the church steps every day.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
She would be there from morning until she had to go home to make dinner with the baby.
Terribly sad.
I guess like even the kitchen wasn't enough anymore. It's so
Ugh.
sad. And they weren't even welcome in the church, so she would just sit on the stairs.
That's just so awful.
Yeah. So one day, one of the nuns walking by saw her sitting on the stairs and looked her in the eyes and said, "You're not welcome here." And I guess the nun had heard the story of Edwin cussing out the priest or something, or maybe the story had
It's not her fault.
telephoned into like, oh, something demonic's going on in that family. Don't talk to them. I don't know. But anyway, thanks priest has now become thanks nuns.
Thanks a lot, nuns.
Because they straight up said, don't come back here. So now she had nowhere to go where she felt safe.
Thanks for nun thing.
Guess how much you helped? None.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way to use none as its own saying. Yeah,
You nailed it.
None thing does not really work.
So on top of this, the spirits became too much for Diane downstairs, and she began acting different. Her personality totally changed, and her and Dan were fighting. So eventually it became so much that she left with the baby. And Dan stayed, but Marcia remembers feeling like even though they never really talked about things, she lost someone who understood what was going on.
Yeah.
So now it's just Marcia, Edwin, and Dan downstairs. And eventually the couple gets to a boiling point because Edwin is still not telling Marcia everything. He's still in some denial, and they're fighting. And Marcia says, "You've changed a lot. You're always angry. You're antagonizing these ghosts. You're talking to Ben like he's here. Like, I just want to go home. I'm going to go see my mom. I don't want to be here anymore."
Good.
I think she saw Diane do it, and she was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And so
yeah, I don't blame her.
She took the baby and left. And while she was gone for the next month, Edwin didn't notice a lot of paranormal change, but his excuse was like, I'm always at work. So
Sure.
I didn't see anything. But he does say this was his lowest point because he just felt like he completely failed his wife. He didn't know how to protect her or fix anything or get out of this and find a better place. And interestingly, just like how he said, well, I was always at work, so I never saw any real ghost activity. He did have an interesting theory, which I'd never heard of before, but he was like, I feel like ghosts are just humans and they do human routines just like we do. And that includes sleep, because they both say that the whole time that they had hauntings, all the activity was from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
What?
And he was like, they never woke us up in the middle of the night. Which, like, by the way, thank God, if you saw the clock strike 10, at least you knew you were like off duty.
That's a good point. Like, then you were safe to watch your color TV in peace.
Yeah.
Watch some Saturday Night Live,
Yeah, but he was like, it was just always in that time frame. And so usually he woke up at 5 a.m. to go to work, and then he came home late. So like he did, especially when she wasn't there, he had no reason to come home early. So he just stayed at work. So he never really saw anything that often. But the one time he did feel in danger when he was living by himself was when he went to make Chef Boyardee. We all feel a little like we're on the wild side with some Chef Boyardee.
Right, I was gonna say a little living on the edge.
Yeah. So I guess he put the raviolis in the pot, and then he was like, "Oh, I have to run out and do something." I think he was gonna like walk one of their dogs that hadn't run away yet, and when he came back, he hadn't started cooking or anything. He just left them in the pot, and then he was like, "Oh, I'll get back to this." When he came back, the gas burners were on and the ravioli had burned in the pot.
That's so dangerous.
Yeah, so that was when he was like, "Oh, this is super bad. Like they could kill us."
Yeah.
So shortly after this, Edwin gets in his car. He goes back to Marcia's mom's house to win her back and says, "Come home. We are going to figure this out no matter what."
He has like some
And
burned Chef Boyardee. He's like, I need my wife to come in.
he's like,
I
"Please."
don't come back,
I
please.
know. So he ends up, Marcia hears him out, comes back home with him, and they start looking into professional paranormal help,
Thank goodness.
which we will learn about next week.
What a cliffhanger.
That was so long, but I'm telling you, I almost tried to do this entire story
No,
in one
God.
take.
Yeah, that would have been a long one.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I really did talk. I was watching the clock. I did this. I talked for 45 minutes. I'm so embarrassed. But
I'm so embarrassed.
well,
Don't be embarrassed.
I hope I didn't upstage you. I'm just aware. I'm just weirdly aware of it. So.
No, you're good. I mean, this is what we do here on this lovely show of ours. I also have quite a doozy for you today. So I will also watch the clock and make sure I don't overdo it with the time.
Honestly, if you talk for 45 minutes, call it even, folks.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what I can pull off here. So Em, today I have a story for you. I want to warn everybody, this one's pretty disturbing, and I know, they're all disturbing, but this one's like very, very graphic.
Great.
Like hello, it's very graphic. Are you listening, everybody?
Okay, well let me appreciate this last moment of innocence.
Yeah. Do you want me to say e-money again or e-dog?
You just did. So
how about Diane and Dan?
I do like the sound of them as a couple. I hope that they fared well after the fact.
Here's a little ditty for Dan and Diane.
Two American kids growing up best they can
in a haunted ass house
in the Heartland, in the Ghost Land. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
In the Haunt Land.
That's pretty good. Hauntland.
I don't know about that, but we'll stick with it.
This is the story of Richard Trenton Chase, aka the Vampire of Sacramento.
No clue where this is going, except that the vampire part kind of gives me a hint, but I really don't know. I don't know anything about the story.
I knew the basics and I did not know the details, and I kind of wish I could go back to a time when I did not know the details.
How did you hear about this?
It's just a story. It's just a big story that I always knew about, or I always knew of. So I figured, why not cover it? And then once I realized how dark it was, I was like, well, too late now. Here you go, everybody.
Jeez. Okay. Well, hey, I'm excited to be educated.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered some pretty fucked up stories, so this wouldn't be the first time. But I also want to warn you right off the bat, he's a Gemini. So he was born May 23rd, 1950. Happy Gemini season.
Well, yeah, thanks. I am aware of all the lists of serial killers and how many of them are Geminis.
Memes. Yeah.
I know I say a lot about Scorpios, but I am also aware that Gemini probably have a whole lot of ammo that could be used against us.
I think we're probably the second most hated, if not the most hated, zodiac sign.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't blame anybody for that. Yeah.
I feel like if someone told me they were uninterested in me because I'm a Gemini, I'd be like, I get it.
Same here.
Like I dig it because I've found the happy spots, but I'm okay with you not liking it.
Yeah, I dig it. I've made a home for myself here. It's okay, but I understand
we're fine with
that
the cross
if you want to, if you want to take your bindle and move on, I'm not going to stop you. Oh, okay. So Richard Chase. He's a Gemini, born May 23rd, 1950. He lived in a pretty typical household with his mother, father, and younger sister. He did all the classic stuff, Boy Scouts, Little League, had normal friends. But allegedly his father was a rigid disciplinarian. He would beat his children, very abusive. And according to some sources, which seemed like slightly less, like how you were saying earlier, some sources seemed... or was only in a couple sources, so it's like you're not 100% sure if this is fully true, but according to some sources, Richard would wet his bed, start fires, and torture animals as a child, which, as
Ring
we
ding
know,
ding. Yeah.
ring ding ding has been dubbed as the McDonald Triad, which is said to occur in children more likely to commit violence in adulthood.
Hmm.
But so either way, outside of the abusive household and this potential behavior, he had a pretty standard upbringing. Um, there was a time when his parents broke up and sent him off to live with relatives for a bit, but when they got back together, they moved the family to Sacramento for a fresh start, and teenage Richard had a pretty normal social life. He was even good looking, like his classmates considered him good looking. He made friends easily. He dated multiple girls throughout high school. But when he started dating, he kind of had a revelation about himself, which would haunt him throughout his life, which is that he was impotent. He,
Oh.
layman's terms, couldn't get it up.
Hmm.
And this was a huge blow to his confidence, which, I mean, you can understand as like a teenage boy. I imagine that
Sure.
would be a very difficult thing to reckon with, especially if you're dating people. And, so I can see this being,
Especially in like the 60s or 70s, where I feel like
right.
there was definitely not as much information about it as we know today.
Yeah, that's true. You couldn't even like Google it,
Yeah, couldn't
Yeah,
Google it.
what are you gonna do? Yeah, that's a good point. So he had a huge blow to his confidence, and he developed pretty extreme body obsessions.
Mm.
He went to doctors for help, one of whom said his impotence was a symptom of suppressed rage, but then said, anyway, that's it, and gave no help or advice or prescription or anything. Just was like, oh, you have
Jeez.
suppressed rage. Here, let me add to it. Okay, bye. Get out of my office. I don't know.
Yikes.
So he became obsessed with his impotence and his overall health, and he decided to start finding his own cure. And so he started reading medical books, and really obsessing with the idea of trying to heal himself.
Hmm.
And, as somebody with OCD, I can see that. I can see that. I don't know that he had that, but it almost seems like, oh, okay, he's just like obsessively trying to find something to like fix his
Yeah.
problems, and it gets way out of hand. So,
Oh God. Okay.
yeah, he starts self-medicating with speed, LSD, weed, and alcohol. And eventually, through all his obsessive quote unquote research, he comes to the conclusion that he can't maintain an erection because there's not enough blood in his body. And
Oh, I see what's
see where we're
happening here.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to some extent, I feel like that isn't the wackiest idea at the
No,
start,
it's
at
certainly
a very
rooted
base
in
level.
it's rooted in some basic logic.
Anatomy, right? Like the
Yeah.
blood flow. Okay, you need that to, yeah. So, right. So to an extent, I'm like, okay, I get the train of thought. Um, but as somebody suffering from mental illness, etc., he became obsessed with blood. Obsessed.
Haha.
It's sort of like he saw that as his like little life raft, and he climbed on and he did not let go. And this is the notorious obsession that he would become known for. So, despite all this happening as a teenager, like during his teenagehood, he graduated high school, he moved into an apartment with friends, and this is where his drug and alcohol dependencies worsened. He would get high and walk around the apartment naked, which, shocker, his roommates didn't love.
What? Why not?
Super not into it. I know, it's weird. Like, seems right down your alley, but no, they
It
didn't
honestly,
love it.
I did live for 6 years with someone who was trying to qualify for Olympic swimming. He was in little skivvies pretty often. So
Yeah, 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 yeah,
that's
yeah.
that I think he had a reason. But what I think about, was this guy just walking around naked for like
He was
a
just high and just wandering around.
Oh,
There
he was on drugs.
Yes, he was high. He would get high and just
Okay.
wander around naked. Yeah.
I didn't know if I thought he was just like a nudist. And I was like, that's fine. But
No.
I get it now.
Yeah. I wish that were
get it now.
it. I wish it were just that, but unfortunately, no.
Okay. So I'm reading the room now.
Yeah, they didn't love it. He was not reading the room. They tried to kick him out, and he refused to leave. So instead, everyone else left. They were like, you know what? We're moving out. You can stay here and have this apartment to yourself.
Fair
So he
enough.
got it. And so Richard started
You know what's always also interesting though is
yeah,
that if
what?
he were walking around naked and well, I don't know. I don't know where his brain was, but I feel like if your big issue is all stemming from your impotence in that region of you and yet you're exposing yourself. I feel like there's something there
Hmm.
that I feel like someone could unpack.
Yeah,
Or
that's a good
if he's or maybe if he's truly just high and just taking his clothes off it like means nothing.
yeah, it's hard
And
to say because there were so many pathologies happening that I don't know if that was one of
yeah.
them or if that was just a weird habit. But yeah,
Okay.
maybe it was like, oh, he didn't, I don't know, didn't have to worry about having an erection in front of people, so he
I
just
guess
wandered around
so.
naked. I don't know.
That sounds like in a one very slight way. That sounds like a bit of an upswing. Like at least you don't have to worry about that. I'm sure
Not a
there's
very far upswing, if you know what I mean. But
oh, okay, Christine. I'm also aware that there's a lot of m- like issues with that, but I feel like at least if you're looking for a silver lining, at least you don't have to worry about that.
yeah, at the very least, right?
Yeah.
So back at home, he now has a place to himself and he is continuously paranoid about his body, his health, and his general lack of blood. He started to worry because he thought his heart would stop beating every now and then. And
Hmm.
he suspected this is where it starts to go pretty off the rails. He suspected that someone had somehow stolen his pulmonary artery.
Okay. Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I would say. He also feared he didn't have enough vitamin C, which he treated by taking a vitamin C supplement. No,
Oh,
wrong.
wow, you really threw me for a second. I was like, wow, that's the most logical thing he's done.
I was so hoping to read those words next, but no, unfortunately. This one it was pretty harmless, but very ineffective. He would press oranges to his head
Ugh,
and try to absorb vitamin C directly into his brain by
okay.
diffusion. In
Okay.
case anyone's wondering, the physicist, this probably does not work, correct?
Well, let me take my physicist hat off and put on my nutritionist hat. But I think my thought is like, why wouldn't you just eat them? Like
That's
if like they're in
right.
your hands, like they're so accessible to you, and
Well, his
you could just peel them with your
I
hands.
know it's like so.
You don't
I
need
didn't.
any
You
tools.
know what's so stupid? I didn't even think of that. I was like, oh, take a vitamin C supplement. But like, you're right, just eat the orange. But I guess his thinking was he wanted to diffuse it into his brain, so he pressed it onto his head. Which,
I mean, I don't get it, but I get it. I get it. I kind of.
yeah,
Oh,
I
well,
feel. I feel like if a 2-year-old told me that, I'd be like, oh, I see your thought process. But this
yeah,
seems like, well, hello, you've read a bunch of medical books, sir. Don't you know?
it's definitely good toddler logic of like
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
need vitamin C in my head, then put it
Put
on
it
my
by
head.
your head. Yeah, the
Like
right.
manifesting.
To that point, I can sort of see it. Um, and up to this point, it's okay. He's harmed a few oranges, but that's about it. Things are about to get bad, and I'm so sorry. So as we know, he allegedly, according to himself, has no blood. He is missing an artery. But if that weren't stressful enough, he also feared that his skull bones had disconnected from each other and had started moving around in his head.
Is there more than one skull bone? Isn't your skull one big old bone? Am I an idiot?
No. No, I mean I think what I'm assuming, I'm not positive, is where your skull fuses that maybe he thought
Oh,
they had
okay.
separated.
And they're clacking around in there.
They're clacking around like how babies have the, separation,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
the fontanelle. I wonder if that's what he thought. Like I mean, maybe he thought his jaw and like I'm not really sure what bones he thought were disconnecting, but my thought is that he thought the three pieces of the skull had come apart because he thought
Oh.
that his bones had separated and were like, yeah, just clanging around in there.
Technically your teeth are your skull bones,
Yeah,
so they could be rattling around in there too.
that one I think you'd be able to pretty easily notice.
It would explain the not eating an orange.
That's
Well,
true.
not really. I guess you could still eat. Whatever. I'm
You
getting
could
too
drink the
far off
orange
topic.
juice, but
So okay, so what's the reason now why he thinks that his bones are?
He's just sort of decided that that's
Oh,
one of his health issues.
okay. I didn't know if there was a trail that led
No,
to
and
that.
to me, this is also starting to sound again like OCD, like health related OCD. The,
Hmm.
the obsession of like something is wrong with something must be wrong with me health wise, but it again, I it's not
Neither of
just
us are
that.
experts. Neither of us.
No,
Also,
and
I
it's
wonder if.
also it just gets so bad that it's like, well, clearly that was not the issue. But to me, I was like, oh, I can see where you're kind of like your brain is
Mhm.
coming up with all these explanations of what could be wrong health wise.
I also wonder, like, well, I obviously know nothing about this, so I'm just kind of spitting out into nowhere. But, I also wonder if there's like any like Munchausen situation where he's like coming up with like crazy things that are happening to him, even though they're not happening to him,
Yeah, well, the thing with Munchausen's though is that you're sort of uh faking it.
like
And I
for
think
attention.
yeah, you're faking it and I think he legitimately was terrified that these things
Uh
were
huh.
real.
Okay.
So it was more of I would say like a hypochondria situation at the
Oh,
start
okay. Okay.
than that. But yeah, I had that same thought too, but the fact that he like truly believed that his brain, his skull was exposing his brain and all that, I think he legitimately believed it.
And if he did, by the way, terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah, yeah. No, and I don't fault him for that. And I mean, we get into his diagnoses later, so
Okay,
like
cool.
fully, this is clearly mental illness at play. Because there was no reason to suspect that his bones in his head were actually separating, but he really truly believed it. And so to kind of help him keep an eye on that, I guess, he shaved off all his hair so he could see if his bones were moving.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so he saw multiple doctors. He was routinely dismissed as a hypochondriac when he clearly needed some major
Help.
mental health intervention. And he was ultimately diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia at age 23, which, I mean, as you know, I've a limited experience researching that, but from what I've learned, that kind of manifests in like late teen, early
Mm,
20s from oftentimes men. And so that would kind of fit where he's
sure.
graduating high school, he's done okay so far, and then it, all kind of comes to the surface. So yeah, he was diagnosed with this at age 23, left the hospital after 72 hours. He went and lived with his mother, and who had now divorced from his father. And while he was living with her, he became convinced that she was poisoning him. So he wouldn't eat any food she made, and she just couldn't handle him. So she uh, told his dad, her ex, and he sent Richard to live in an apartment on his own. So
Oh.
he was on his own now again, and
That doesn't feel like the right call. I don't know
doesn't
what
feel
I don't
good.
know what the right call is, but I feel like he needs help or
Yeah.
someone watching him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So now he's alone and he begins to fully hone in on this no blood obsession. Uh, and this is where things take a quick, sharp downward spiral and continue.
Okay.
The first thing he did was he would capture rabbits, he would disembowel them and drink their blood and then eat the bodies raw.
Wow. Okay.
Then, as if that weren't enough for your poor brain, he
Hmm.
blended the organs with Coca-Cola and drank it.
That's new. That's an original one.
It's an original.
That's
Richard
new.
Chase. It's an original.
Um. So
I call it RC Cola.
what's wrong with you? I. I.
Get it?
I get it. I get it. I get it. I. My. Here's my thing. I want to know why soda? Like did because even he knew it was disgusting and he needed to mix it with something?
I imagined maybe it was just what he had on hand, and it
But
since
like
the.
if he's already drinking their blood and he's like, that's fine. Why
But I
did
think it's because the organs were. He wanted to blend the organs, but you
oh
need a
he
liquid.
couldn't you just do that with the blood before you
Like, he
drank
already
it?
drank the blood.
He was like, ah man, I needed that for the next part.
Oh,
And
I drank that too quickly. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the logic. I mean,
did
the
he
logic, but
I don't I yeah, I also this is probably not a question with a true answer to it, but did he enjoy the taste of it, or did he gag on it and feel like I just have to do it and get through it to have more blood?
You know, I wonder that myself. I don't know the answer, so I want to put that out first. But my guess is that it, because I don't think he ever did this. Well, I don't know if ever, but I don't think this started as an enjoyment, like how you see some people say, like, "Oh, I like the taste of flesh" or
Right.
whatever. I don't think it was that at all. I think he legitimately thought this would cure him, and did it more as just like a health measure, quote unquote.
Like, I, wow.
I imagine if you have a taste for Coca-Cola, you probably don't have a taste for rabbit organs, but
Sure. In
legitimately,
which
I
case,
don't know.
though, if you really thought you needed to eat the organs, couldn't you cook those? Couldn't you just have like chicken liver or rabbit liver?
You probably could, but he
I don't
didn't,
know what
so
I mean, obviously he's not thinking in this. He went from putting oranges on his head to
to
blending rabbits.
disemboweling rabbits and putting
So,
them in a blender. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it
So
really is a complete nosedive.
yeah, I don't think there's much logic here that I could really explain to
Offer.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, offer, yeah. So all of this to him at the time seemed rational as a way to treat his ailments. He now also believed his blood was turning to powder and needed to be replaced, and so this became a
Whoa.
fixation for him, like an obsession of replenishing his blood, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He also thought his heart was shrinking, so he was. I mean, he had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Like
Yeah, he's going through it. He's
he
going through
really
it.
was believing that these things were happening to him, and he was terrified. So Richard went on drinking his rabbit smoothies for a couple of years and just did that until he became sick for real with
Because he was
septicemia.
because he was
Yeah.
fucking eating rabbit
Well, actually,
blood.
no. He got blood poisoning because he injected rabbit blood into his veins.
Okay. Uh, it's one of those things where I have a lot to say, but then I'm very quickly reminded there's mental illness involved.
I
But
know,
like,
I know, I
because
know.
I have comments that probably would be insensitive until I'm aware that like this guy really thought he was helping himself, and then I'm like,
Yes.
oh my
Like
god,
this,
like,
he was like going through hell himself. Um, and so, and I don't say that to excuse what happens later at all, but you know, it's just worth noting. So his father took him to the emergency room. Septicemia is apparently, from what I've heard, extremely painful and extremely dangerous.
is that not sepsis? They
Yeah,
sound the
yeah,
same.
it's right. It's a blood. It's like poisoning of your bloodstream,
Okay.
basically. Yeah, it's very dangerous. So his father took him to the emergency room where he told the staff about his blood that he had injected, and so finally they end up sending him to a psychiatric hospital.
I was
Um,
gonna say, like, is he not telling people he's doing this? Like, he knows better than to be announcing it to his friends and family.
yeah, I think he probably hadn't told anybody until he was in the hospital, and they were like, "Why
Wow.
is your blood poison?" And maybe he explained it.
Imagine
Um,
the nurses that went home that night.
oh
Like,
boy.
I'm sure I know nurses probably get crazy stories all the time, but I feel like that one takes the cake.
That one's pretty wild, especially if later on, a few years down the road, you turn on the news and you're like, "Uh-oh, I know that
Yeah.
guy," you know?
Yeah.
So he tells the staff they send him to a psychiatric hospital. They send him to Beverly Manor Psychiatric Hospital in Sacramento. At this point, talk about insensitive. He's nicknamed Dracula, and it is conflicting sources say he was called this either by the staff or by fellow patients. I like to think the
Oof.
staff didn't do that, but you never know.
You never know.
Um, Staff once found him with blood smeared on his face, and they found out that he was sitting at the windowsill and capturing birds and beheading them
Holy shit. Wow.
and drinking their blood.
So he's also so that's a new layer to the mental illness in my mind, or is it? Because so he knows he's getting sick from doing this and now it's not stopping him, which makes me feel like there's a whole new level of I don't care. Like I
Well,
don't
I
like
think part of it is that he thinks he's keeping himself alive this way, almost like the only
oh
reason, because he's replenishing his blood supply, you know, and so he keeps doing it, even though one time when he injected it, he got sick.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I also it really has graduated from being like a toxic masculinity thing of like I need it's like, so he's not even doing this anymore for an erection. He's doing
No,
it because
yeah.
he thinks his blood is powdering away.
Right, it's right, exactly. Like it almost started
Ugh.
as that and then turned into something, and then, he would I think again, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not any expert, but or a medical provider, but I think the fact that he was dealing with that as a teenager and then, schizophrenia usually kicks in when uh for boys or for men around like that
Yeah.
20 years old. And so I could see that that could have morphed
Hmm.
into something way bigger. Um, just horrifying. So they catch him doing this in his room with the birds. And this is actually interestingly reminiscent of a character in Dracula, like the book by Bram Stoker, who is named Renfield and basically spends his time luring insects and birds into his room to like eat and kill them.
Oh,
So,
whoa.
strangely enough, they're calling him Dracula and he's known for this obsession and he does this odd behavior that the character in Dracula does. So, kind of weird. Um this is not good. I mean, none of it's good. In the hospital, he has access to therapy dogs. Not sure who allowed that when
Oh my
he is known for
God.
harming animals. And he starts stealing syringes and extracting blood from them. He did not kill any of these dogs, I don't believe. So at least there's that. But he
Does
was,
he, sorry, I know it's
no,
like,
no, no.
like
Ask
there's,
away. I might not have answers, but it's worth
I
asking
can't
because,
imagine you will. I'm just screaming into a void at this point because it's like,
but you're probably saying what everyone else is thinking, So.
maybe I feel like I don't know what it's like to live like a paranoid schizophrenic. I don't have that knowledge, but I feel like even if you think, "Oh, I need more blood so that way I can put it in my body," you would think like there's at least the fear of cross contamination of like if you really think like, "Oh, I need more blood." I feel like I would still think like, "Oh, if I need blood, if I do too much blood, then that might be bad too." Like, but obviously this person is not stable.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a clear line
I know.
of
I know. I would
foresight and hindsight.
I would at least think if I need more blood without cross contamination, I need human blood. In which case, then you're a
Well, don't
literal
worry.
serial.
That's kind of where we end up. So,
Okay, okay. Well, I don't know why I'm surprised by that, but it just feel like there's like the of all the illogical things happening here, the most logical one is to streamline human blood with human blood, and so the animal blood is just and mixing it all together and just being desperate for blood at all. That feels like a whole other level of desperation. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. There's no right words. I don't know.
yeah,
It's crazy.
it's
Crazy making.
deeply, deeply, deeply disturbing. And the fact that he's moved from wild rabbits, which obviously also disturbing, but to like people's pets, like
Pets.
therapy dogs,
Pets.
it's gets and it just gets worse, folks. Okay.
It's getting more and more I don't want to say like I don't care about the bunnies or the birds, but like it's getting closer and closer to home for me, I think.
Yeah, and it becomes I mean it's getting more out of our comfort zone. That's
Uh-huh.
another wrong way to put it, but I mean you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's almost like catching wild animals is different than taking someone's pet and harming them, obviously.
Yeah.
Um so he was prescribed Thorazine, which is a powerful tranquilizer. Although it was suspected that his problems might also be symptoms of heavy drug abuse. Uh, and so that was something that they couldn't really alleviate at this psychiatric hospital. But eventually his behavior did seem to improve and he was released into the custody of his mother, who decided to take him off of his medications and began to wean him off of the medications. Why she did that, not sure. And when he became unstable again, she moved out and left him on his own with
Hmm.
no medication. So,
Great.
yeah, we can imagine that this didn't go well. So he stopped taking care of himself. No bathing, no grooming, barely any eating apart from like the animals he was catching.
Ugh,
Uh,
wow. So
he
he's
suff-
just like almost on a strictly blood diet now.
yeah, he's just like eating raw animals.
Honestly, it's shocking he didn't just drop dead.
It's really amazing that this sepsis happened once and not every week. I feel like
Well, I mean, also, like, I'm even afraid of, like, eating cooked steak that's a little undercooked. Like, but, like,
right.
this guy's just chugging blood. It's just so like, I
Like
just
it can't.
how is
Yeah,
he living? How
I have no freaking clue. Um, he basically just continued to capture, kill, and consume animals. He began to capture dogs and cats from the neighborhood.
Okay, that's where we're heading next.
Yeah, and he even got some at pet stores.
Oh, for God's sake.
Okay,
Okay.
that's the end of that, I promise. A neighbor did say later, "Oh, I saw him just carrying different animals into the house." And but never reported it. Hey, see
Ugh.
something, say something, folks. Okay, even especially if it's about helpless animals. All right,
Yep.
okay. At some point, Richard showed up at his mom's house with a dead cat. We don't know whose cat it was or whether it was her cat or his cat, but he showed up with a cat. And in front of his mother, he threw the cat on the ground, opened it up with his bare hands, put his hands inside of the cat, smeared the insides on his face, and drank the blood, all while screaming.
Oh.
And
Why
his
was the
mother
screaming the worst part of that for me?
just like
Okay.
screaming at his mother, right? Yeah, it just adds some weird, like animalistic, horrific thing to it. Um, his mom closed the door, and never reported the incident to anyone.
Honestly, I mean, fucked up. I'm not saying it's not fucked up, but also, can you imagine seeing your family do that? Like, what the fuck do you do? I mean, I would like to think I would report it, but I think I'd be so scared for my own life at that point. I'd be
I would
like,
just be scared for my child. I'd be like, my
yeah,
child is ill. I need to, you know what I mean? At least I like to think that's what I would feel, but I mean, it's hard to judge somebody else when you don't know the
I think I'd be
experience.
I think I'd be scared in just a lot of ways all at once.
It'd be terrifying.
I'd be I mean, I obviously don't have a baby, so I don't have that from a reference. But even if it were you, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Are you
Yeah.
okay? But then also, I guess with their history of like him clearly needing help and her clearly not
Right.
supervising
It's not
him, like
surprising necessarily
I
that.
don't want to say I don't want to say she's a bad mom because I don't know what she's like, but it sounds like there's been a lot of incidents where like it was clear he needed to be monitored, and
And neither of his parents really did anything.
they seem to be okay. I don't know. I don't want to. I don't know their parenting style. All I know is what I'm hearing, and it doesn't sound super hot. Doesn't sound like I would get advice from them.
Yeah, I feel like if anything has ever been described as a cry for help, here's one, a big one.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know, but I
I
don't know.
agree.
Maybe he was just trying to scare her and it worked. But
And she
for
never reported it ever. Not even later. Or well, I
well,
guess
I
she
mean,
had to for this
yeah, we
story.
know it now, but like at the time, she didn't report it. And again, like I guess on the other hand, like who do you report it to? I mean,
Yeah.
I-
Was hurting, I don't know, you might not know this either. At what point did like hurting animals become like a law? Like I don't
so they're actually they do touch on that later, and I bet nowadays it's different. But I think in the 70s there really wasn't probably much protection for
so like
animals.
realistically, like even though it looked real wild, the cops might not have been able to hold him on anything.
I imagine like what are they going to prove whose cat it is? Yeah, I imagine like
Hmm.
that might not be the most effective thing to do. And then as far as like a psychiatric thing, it's like he's a grown adult now.
Yeah.
Uh so I do get why like how would you go about this, but at the same time I feel like let's just say I wish
Yeah.
somebody had given him the help he needed.
It's
So
certainly that's the poster child story for see something say something. Of like
yeah,
you're
yeah.
watching him rip a cat open with his bare hands
Yeah,
and
yeah.
eat it, maybe call somebody, at
I
least a
know.
friend.
A friend. Let a friend
Like
know.
just be like, do
Don't
you
call
have any
me.
advice?
I don't want to know. Don't
Yeah.
call me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, just really sad, really scary. Um Clearly in need of a new hobby, Richard decides he's going to start collecting guns.
Whoa. Hey, could it get worse? Yep.
Yep, here we go. In 1977, police patrolling the Nevada desert found an abandoned car covered in blood with men's clothes and 2 rifles inside, along with a bucket filled with blood and a liver. By a nearby lake, they found Richard Chase naked and covered in blood. He tried to run away. They caught him. After arresting and interviewing him, police determined the blood and liver belonged to a cow that Richard had shot with one of his rifles. But since there was no human victim, kind of going off what you were just saying, everything was dismissed and he was set free.
Well, shit.
So it's like, I don't know, Em. I don't know.
I got nothing. Usually we've got something. I got nothing.
Got nothing. And so now, I mean, we'd see he's graduating from dogs and cats to bigger animals, which we can only imagine what happens next.
Mm-hmm. It's almost, I wonder if he was testing it with a cow, like a bigger person.
That's what I think is happening.
Yeah,
because
like sizing it up.
He used his guns to shoot it and see if he could overtake it. Yeah. So on December 27th, 1977, he attempted his first murder. He drove around Sacramento with a new .22 semi-automatic pistol. He randomly spotted a woman named Dorothy Polinsky through her window in the kitchen while she was doing dishes. And he fired at her from his car. Thankfully, missed her head by an inch.
Whoa.
It went through the window, through her hair, and got lodged in a cabinet.
So it's just like that time when like there was like a stabbing or shooting and it hit the guy's car keys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like it just hit your hair, like, so now you've just got like a chunk missing and now you can look at where a bullet almost hit you.
It's terrifying. Yeah, it went through her hair and hit a cabinet and he drove away. 2 days later, December 29th of 77, Richard saw Ambrose Griffin, age 51, a father of two, unloading groceries from his car in his driveway. Richard drove past, shot him twice. One bullet missed, the other hit him in the chest, and he fled the scene. Paramedics arrived, and Ambrose was still conscious, but he died shortly afterward. At first, they thought it was a heart attack, but then they saw the bullet because they just didn't even realize what had happened at first.
Wow.
And so finally, you know, they are looking at this as a shooting, and they first think this must be random, but then they realize that the bullet in Ambrose Griffin's chest was the same as the one in Dorothy's kitchen cabinet. So they're like, okay, somebody.
I was
going to
say, how did we know that Dorothy was this guy? I was going to ask how we like knew he was involved.
Yeah, they matched the bullets.
Gotcha.
So nearly, they wasn't much else they could do at this point. So they match the bullets. They know it's the same person, but not much else to do.
Also, I like your Cackle Witch shirt.
Do you like my shirt? Yeah, I was gonna say it earlier, but there never seemed to be a good time because things were too fucked up.
There's never a good time.
No. So nearly a month later, January 23rd of 1978, married couple Robert and Barbara Edwards came home and discovered Richard Chase standing in their home. He had found the door unlocked and had let himself in. He ran away, but the house, when they looked, was in shambles. He had peed in a drawer where they kept their baby's clothes.
Whoa.
And then he had defecated on the baby's bed.
That's interesting because I don't know if that's, I mean, everything that's coming out of my mouth is, I don't know if this is mental illness, or I don't know how to explain mental illness, but I feel like that almost feels intentional because it feels so not part of his usual mission.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm here for the blood. I need the blood. But like to have done all that other stuff is like, I feel like there's a whole other scenario that's come up in his mind, or it was just like, I don't like that feels so out of character. I almost wouldn't give that an MO for him.
Yeah, I know. It's only the fact that they saw him standing there that kind of pinned him to this too, because it really is, it's random. But again, you know, he's
all this is random,
unwell. Yeah, and a lot of this doesn't totally make sense in the traditional way. So Richard later said in an interview that he, now tell me if this rings familiar. He takes an unlocked door as an invitation into a home, he said.
Yep, that'll do it. That's,
do you know, does that remind you of,
is that I know it's one of the big ones. Is it Richard Ramirez?
Oh no, I was just saying it's like a vampire.
Oh, there's like a serial killer too who also said like, oh well, the door was open and just
that's probably probably any of those guys from the 70s, I feel like is probably
They all just really liked unlocked doors. But no, it definitely also feels like a vampire.
it's
Although
sort of although
he'd
a
have to be welcomed
vampire you
in.
had to invite them in, but still, yeah, I do
I see
feel
what you did there.
I do feel a little bit like, oh, that's creepy that he felt like, oh, well, I've been welcomed into this home because they left the door unlocked. It's like, that's
Ugh.
yikes,
Like he
big
took it
yikes.
as the invitation that a
As the
vampire
sign.
might.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
As like
I'm
the
with you.
welcome, you know.
Creepy.
So he said if he reached a door that was locked, he would conclude that he was not welcome in that home and he would move on. I mean, how fucking scary is that?
Which, like, just PSA to everyone: lock your goddamn doors.
Please, please, if there's
Just
anything you take from this podcast,
for
just
all
lock your
you
damn doors.
for all you know, a serial killer is going to leave you alone because your door's locked.
Right? And walk away. I mean,
But then
come
again,
on.
I guess you could argue that there's probably one out there who would only want you if your door was locked. I don't know. It's all
That's
bad.
fine. Just lock your door.
It's all bad.
It's all bad. So a woman named Jean Layton reportedly at some point watched Richard walk up to her house, try her door, which was locked, check all of her windows, also locked, and then just walk away. And she's like, that was really weird. And then later was like, holy shit. Like, thank God I locked all the windows and door.
Yeah.
And this is the 70s. Like, people didn't all lock their doors back then, you know?
No.
So, January 23rd, 1978, Richard entered the home. Oh, Blaze. I just said Blaze, I mean M. This is
Oh.
when I was researching this earlier and I was like, Blaze, this is so fucked up. But now I just have to tell you. M,
But thanks. Yeah,
I
I'll be
hate it.
Blaze. I'll be Blaze for right now.
Blaze, hold my hand. So he broke into the home of 22-year-old Teresa Wallen, who was 3 months pregnant.
Oh, God.
He shot and killed her. He then took a knife out of the kitchen and stabbed
baby out?
Teresa. No, he did not do
Oh,
that.
thank God. Okay.
But thank you for saying it out loud so that we all had to think about it.
Okay.
He stabbed her heart, removed some of her organs, and sliced off one of her nipples.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Then this is just so beyond. He used an empty yogurt cup out of the trash can to scoop up her blood and drink it.
Okay. Dare I ask what happened with the baby? Or was,
Oh,
I mean, obviously
well,
the baby died.
I mean, she was only 3 months pregnant, so yeah, there was not
So he might have
hope
not
for
even
that.
known that she was pregnant, is what you're
right.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was, in my mind, he was aware and something was going to also happen to the baby. Which,
No, I think that was just part of. Oh wow, well let's just make this even more fucked up, and throw in the fact that she was pregnant, of course. So there's more that he does
Oh,
here.
okay.
So he engages in acts of necrophilia with Teresa's body. Then, as if that weren't fucking horrible enough, he goes outside, collects dog feces, and puts it in her mouth.
Okay. Okay. That's all.
I'm sorry.
I'm still in my own head of like trying to like figure out why and like
I don't think
I need
that's
to. I know. My brain doesn't understand.
I
that's
think
all.
like humans, yeah, I feel like we want to like explain things and put them in a box, but I think this is not one that's gonna happen.
I really got nothing. That's a rough one.
Yeah, it's bad. So Teresa's husband David came home and found her like that.
Oh
Can
my
you
God.
imagine?
No, I can't.
Responding police officers were at a total loss. One of them later called it the most bizarre thing he had ever seen. They couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on. There was like a yogurt cup. There were these like bloody ring marks on the floor near the body, which resembled the water stains a glass makes when you set it down on a table.
Right.
The killer wore gloves to commit the crime, and he also cleaned the knife he used and then put the knife back in the kitchen.
And is he also like, so with the cow, I don't know if there was like a bucket of blood.
Mhm.
And with this one, there was like, he was just drinking out of a little cup. So like,
Mhm.
is his goal anymore to be drinking as much blood as he can? Or is it, that's not even part of this anymore?
I think the blood obsession is continuing. I think he just is.
Adding on to it.
Yeah, it seems like it's just gotten bigger and more complex.
Okay.
Um,
Sure.
So 2 days later, a dog was found having been shot and killed with the same ammunition that Teresa had been killed with. The kidneys of the dog were missing. And finally, somebody reported something, and the sheriff's department noticed the similarities between the dog, Teresa's killing, Dorothy, and Ambrose Griffin, the same bullets. They theorized that the killer lived within a square mile radius of all the crimes, and they determined the killer was thought to be disorganized and classified by the FBI as an impulsive blitz killer, a murderer who acts alone and without a plan. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Like, he did not have a plan, he was doing it alone. There wasn't really forethought to this.
Yeah.
So they got that nailed down. But it's not over yet. 4 days after Teresa's murder and a mile south in Marywood Drive, Richard entered the unlocked home of 38-year-old Evelyn Maroth, who was babysitting her 22-month-old nephew, David. Her friend, Daniel Meredith, had taken her 6-year-old Jason shopping for snow boots so he could go on a trip with the neighbors. Richard walked into the house, found Evelyn upstairs, and shot and killed her in the hallway. He took Evelyn's body to a bedroom where he attempted to remove one of her eyes. Police noted from the scene that he had found extreme sexual gratification from all of this. So maybe that was part of it, that his impotence was no longer an issue.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
You know how some killers basically get off on the violence and the gore? So they think that might be part of it, is that he was also solving that problem for himself.
Yeah. I know that I hadn't even thought about the fact that, like, it was now almost like reinforcing his beliefs if he's now able to actually.
Yeah, good point, Em.
It's like, oh, now you have enough blood to
I hadn't
be
even
able
thought
to
of it that way.
do what you've always wanted.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that way.
So then but then it just encourages him to keep killing, because if he needs to keep getting enough blood to be able to do that, and then maybe he
thinks this is the only thing keeping him going and keeping him alive.
And you said he is R-wording them also, yeah?
Correct.
So I wonder if he's doing that as, like, to prove that he's finally accomplished this horrible.
Yeah, or if he's just like, wow, look, it's
working.
It's working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very fucked up. But it's not over, because then Daniel Meredith, the friend, came home with the little boy, and Richard shot and killed both of them.
Okay. Got it.
He then went back to Evelyn's body, stabbed her multiple times, drank her blood out of her stomach. Then he got into Daniel's station wagon, which had just been parked there, and fled.
I feel like nothing you say anymore is surprising me, but I feel like you said something about an eyeball. It's all now discombobulated in my head now. But I feel like very few things are surprising me, but I did think, oh, it can't get worse than people, and now it's children also.
Yeah, so it's almost like
it just keeps getting worse,
escalating to points that you can't even see coming.
Yeah.
So a concerned neighbor called the police. There were multiple shots, and the same this guy, I hope, got some intensive therapy, because the same police officer who had shown up first on the scene at Teresa's murder showed up here and found the same bloody rings on the floor, and finally realized, oh, this guy's drinking the blood. That's why the rings from, like, a cup being set down over and over are showing up.
So weird that it took 2 instances for that to get figured out.
I think, but, like, why would you assume that? You know what I mean? Like, it's such a rare thing. Like, why would you be like, what are these circles of blood on the floor?
And there was no DNA yet, right?
There was DNA. There was just no way to trace it. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
That was a good joke. Good joke.
Yes, hilarious. I know.
You really found a way to insert humor in. Thank you, because I was out of goddamn laws.
I know. I'm sweating so much because I'm just so horrified.
But there was no way to trace DNA. Okay, because I was gonna say, like, that's a perfect match with a little sip of the cup and all that, like on the a mouth DNA situation.
Yeah, but I guess also if it's just filled with blood, like.
Oh yeah, that's.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to find. I mean, he was prepared enough to wear gloves, so he was not leaving fingerprints behind. So there was,
He was certainly leaving spit behind, though. But
yeah, that's
you're right.
true.
If it's mixing with blood, like how
With
I don't,
yeah,
whatever.
with such a gory scene.
Mm.
So, oh God, so this is when they're like, okay, great, this guy is literally drinking blood and setting the cup down and then picking it up. So Daniel's stolen station wagon was found near the scene of the crime, which was not far from Richard's home. And as you can imagine, this whole area, people's sense of safety was like turned upside down, violently shaken. The entire community was on edge. There was no like pattern. It wasn't like, oh, he attacks only women, or oh, there's like something specific he's looking out for. And so anybody could be the next victim.
I did think it was interesting that one of his first gunshot victims was a man. And I do wonder if any of this still traces back to his impotence of like, oh, that looks like a strong man who has 2 children. He clearly can get it up.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't think he knew about the children. I think that was
Oh.
another thing with the pregnancy where it was like, oh, father of 2. He was just out in the driveway.
Gotcha.
Let's humanize him, even though it makes it more fucked up. But I don't think he knew that.
I thought that he was aware that it was a father. But
Yeah, no, I think it's
all right.
more. That's a good point, though. But I think it's more of just like an opportunity thing. Like he just saw him unloading
Gotcha.
groceries and was like,
Which is not that I think that like people should be targeted, but it also the reminder that someone could just do something at random because you're the one there is just so scary.
yeah, it's the same as with to me at least. It reminds me of the Israel Keys story of like there's no rhyme or reason. You can't even
Yep.
pretend that you're prepared. You can't even trick yourself into thinking you're safe because
Yeah.
you just don't know. So the pattern was unclear to everybody. Richard seemed to just appear suddenly, randomly, kill indiscriminately, no matter who you are, man, woman, child, cat, dog, doesn't matter. The FBI formed a profile. They described the killer as a loner, someone who was slovenly, malnourished. Well, yeah, they hit that one right on the head.
Yeah.
Possibly, but not likely, living with parents, but otherwise alone, as well as having a history of mental illness and drug abuse. Ding, ding, ding. Police released a composite sketch of a man who had been seen acting suspiciously in the neighborhood days earlier. Several witnesses described the man in the sketch as disheveled and wearing dirty clothes. They didn't realize at the time that the dirty clothes were actually just blood stains on all of his clothing.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, but thankfully, this sketch worked because Richard's former high school classmate, Nancy Holden, recognized Richard in the sketch. And so when the police looked into his arrest and hospitalization history, they started putting a profile of him together. A detective compared the composite sketch to a previous mugshot of Richard, and the mugshot actually had a mustache and goatee. So the detective drew them on to the sketch and went, aha,
Yep.
there he is.
Okay.
So they eventually knocked on Richard's door. They got no answer. And so what they did was they pretended to leave, but they hid out and stalked the door until he left.
I see.
And he walks out the door like out of a horror movie, covered in blood.
Oh my God. Wow. Just
nonstop.
wow.
Nonstop, this guy.
Not even hiding it.
Not even a little bit. The police arrested him. They found Daniel Meredith's wallet in his pocket. So
Ding, ding, ding.
ding, 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 pretty much smoking gun. He also had the bucket he used to carry Evelyn's blood from the scene, along with the .22 caliber pistol that was linked to all the bullets they had found. In the interrogation room, Richard revealed nothing. He didn't acknowledge the murders or that incident in Nevada with the cow where he was discovered naked.
Yeah.
And then once dogs were mentioned, he scoffed about being in trouble just for a bunch of dogs, quote unquote.
Oh shit.
Which is like, buddy, there's a lot more happening here than just that.
Yeah.
And then,
wow.
apropos of nothing, he blurted out, Irish setters are the best.
Oh.
Isn't that horrible? Yeah.
It's the absolute
sorry.
worst fun fact ever.
I'm so sorry, everybody. Officers, meanwhile, searched Richard's apartment. They found nearly every inch of his entire apartment covered in blood. Just like fucking The Shining. elevator scene,
Holy
basically.
shit.
The kitchen was especially macabre, except the knife drawer, which was clean and orderly and described as like surgically clean, this knife drawer.
So weird.
Yeah, he never, this is horrific, cleaned the blender. So he had never cleaned this blender.
So it was also like dirty, moldy, old organs all blended up with your new ones.
Oh, yeah. And they said the smell was, I mean, there's not even a word for it probably, but
Just thinking about it. Yeah.
it's like sickening. They found several pet collars in the kitchen. I'm sorry, everybody. And inside the fridge, they found several body parts. They also found human brain matter on Richard's bed.
Wow.
He appeared for trial in 1979. Prosecution sought the death penalty, but defense fought for second-degree charges, pleading insanity. The argument basically boiled down to whether or not the crimes were premeditated. And because he wore gloves, cleaned a knife to cover his tracks, the jury felt he was sane enough to know right from wrong.
Right.
And they found him guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to death by gas chamber. And in prison, Richard's fellow inmates were terrified of him. And so I guess, understandably, I guess the way that they decided to approach this terror was to goad him into taking his own life. And so they were always telling him to take his own life, and he secretly stored his daily medication, these tranquilizers, until he had enough to take at once to overdose. So on December 28th, 1980, Richard Chase died by suicide at the age of 30. He was only 30.
Wow.
After all that.
Yeah, in my mind, he was like a 60-year-old man at this point. Like,
yeah,
he had lived
there's
such a crazy life.
Yeah, there was so much happening. And it's really fucking sad on so many levels, and just alone the mental illness alone is just so tragic. But then on top of that, the number of people and animals that were hurt and killed and lives ruined just because, this person could not get any help. It's just very, 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 very gruesome and horrific. And I'm so sorry that I brought it to you today, Em.
Well, I feel like you've done a good job of holding off on it for a while. It was kind of bound to happen.
It's been a while since I did just like a super duper fucked up one, I think.
I feel like
I just don't remember what I did recently, but
I don't either. I think it's one of the blessings of being so forgetful. It's nice to know in a couple of weeks I won't have this stored in my head for much longer.
Yeah,
but it's still not
it's not quite as horrific as the Cletus Hems story, but
yeah, I was wondering if there'd be a Chloe Fisherman, I don't know, cameo at some point.
I wish. She charges a lot for a cameo. So tell Linda.
How much?
$69.
I was good. Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't do 666.
$666.
By the way, one of the things that Christine got me for my birthday was a Pokemon card of myself, and the weight on it was 666. Just so we're clear.
I forgot the birthday exchange was only on Patreon. Yeah, so if you want to see the fun gifts,
it wasn't even a birthday exchange yet. We haven't done your presents yet. I'm still waiting for them. I'm still waiting for them to be relocated to
rerouted.
Me. So it's very obnoxious, but
I don't need any presents.
In due time, you will have a surprise gift giving extravaganza.
That's so fun.
You really fucked me up today.
I know, and I was really upset this morning, and now I did it anyway. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry enough to not have done it, but I am sorry.
Honestly, that's kind of the whole purpose of this whole show. It's
I know.
I'm gonna rock your worlds in the worst way, and unfortunately, you're gonna be stuck with that feeling.
And then I'm gonna hang up and leave you to it.
Toodaloo. Just enjoy your time.
Yeah, I'm very glad that here it's almost 8:00, so I can really go downstairs and have a nice stiff drink because I need it.
Good. Good. I'll certainly find a nice bowl of carbs and do something with that, I think. Oh my goodness. Well, also check out our bonus content if you're on Patreon to hear all about some extra birthday behind the scenes.
It's a little
stuff.
palate cleanser, Really,
it's going to be a really thick palate cleanser this time.
Yeah,
it's going to be it's gonna feel a lot better than how I feel currently.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Oy, oy, oy. And
That's
why
we
drink